So I just wanted to share with you a video that I saw by Unicorn Riot. The journalist he was filming this event I think it's in Pennsylvania, and it was to do with a Columbus statue that these right-wing vigilante people were defending, basically. They're protecting. They're afraid that somebody's going to pull it down. And as you can see, they have guns and they also have baseball bats. Interestingly, and not so surprisingly, the police allowed them to have baseball bats and guns. I don't know why the police think it's satisfactory for people to have guns to protect a monument or baseball bats. If there was any semblance of real law and order, the police would have said, "What are you doing with that baseball bat? Are you going to play a game of baseball? And if not, please put that baseball bat back in the car." Or what are you doing with that weapon? Are you intending to shoot somebody if they go near that Columbus statue? And if so, please put that weapon in the car. I mean, basically, there is very little semblance of law and order, and I don't mean the sort of law and order that Donald Trump talks about, where he really wants just anybody who's on the left, he just wants them smashed. I'm talking about any sort of real law and order. There's just a thin sliver of it at this event, and as you'll see, the police, they take ages to actually protect this journalist who's just filming, basically. And he asked a couple of these baseball bat holders why they were there and what they were doing with baseball bats, and they started to get very, very antagonistic towards him, and ended up assaulting him and slashing his bike tires. Anyway, this is just really an example. This is sort of a little glimpse into the future. This is how brown shirts sort of started in Nazi Germany, where when people were, they would just basically take the law into their own hands and start smashing people up and start smashing windows of Jewish citizens that had their own shops, and then smashing up Jewish citizens and killing them, and smashing up other minority groups and killing them. This is how this started. And Donald Trump, he's not an aberration for empire. He's just the mask of empire pulled off. And he is emboldening these people with the kind of inciting violence that he does from his little pulpit on Twitter. And these people have taken up that sort of instruction of Donald Trump, and they think that they're quite entitled to. There's only just a very thin line between them sort of not really harming this journalist. You can see it.
Is legal here or not?
It is.
Okay. That's why I just never see it, so that's why I was like.
It's 100% legal.
Okay. I mean, I don't care either. Like, I don't like gun laws.
No, it is. It's 100%
They're pretty racist.
legal. And every single person that is protected here has a permit.
Yeah.
Like, the police have checked it, and, it's not like they're just standing out here and nothing's happening. Everybody's been checked.
Would you say a lot of people here, like, have families who are in the police? Or is there, like, that direct connection? Or is it more of, like, just, like, a sympathy?
It's not even about the police. It's about protecting the neighborhood. It's about not letting our children. It's not about the police. It's about our children. You see kids.
See, now, this is the sad thing, and this is something that you see over and over again. They can't even be honest about why they're there. They're there to protect the statues that represent white supremacy and power, genocidal power, where Columbus was a genocidal public figure. This is what this represents: white supremacy and power over minority groups, black people, people of color in general, immigrants, anybody who is not considered the ruling power, which is, in this case, white people. And they can't even be honest about it. Instead, they're saying it's protecting our culture and it's protecting our children. Really? If he really believes that, then he's more ignorant than I thought they are. This is very sad, because this is what's happening here is a display of people who are disenfranchised. They feel abandoned by their government, and they see Donald Trump as some kind of somebody that's representing them. But of course, Donald Trump doesn't care two hoots about these people. He's abandoned them just like he's abandoned all these other, anybody else in the country during this COVID pandemic. And of course, both sides of government have abandoned these people as they've abandoned black people and people of color, because they're all for corporations and accumulating more power. They have no interest in the people of the United States. Unfortunately, a lot of these white people don't realize that, and they just see Donald Trump as a representation of white power, and Donald Trump happily plays along with that. Not that I'm saying he's not a racist. I think he definitely is, but he will do whatever he can to hold on to power, and he sees these people will help him with that, and they think that Donald Trump cares about them. It's just very sad, and this is where, in the United States, if you've read the book by Chris Hedges, the Pulitzer Prize recipient, America: The Farewell Tour, and you read about the dreadful poverty and the sort of things that can leave people absolutely bereft, because there are no real social supports for anybody who is struggling. There's really barely any social supports, and a lot of people now are incredibly ignorant. There's a huge amount of ignorance in the United States due to poor education, and these people, these white supremacist vigilantes, are an example of that. And this is sort of heading into a civil war, and Donald Trump is beating the drums of that war and basically inciting these vigilantes into violence against the left, he calls the left. Anybody who isn't for, white supremacy and neo-fascism, basically, he is inciting violence against those people. And these people, sadly, happily, because they're angry at the world, they're angry because they've been abandoned by the government, but they see Donald Trump as some sort of savior, which he's not, and they vote against their best interests by voting for Trump, but they see him as some kind of a leader and somebody who is supporting them, and Donald Trump is just using them to bash the left, basically. And I don't think the Democratic Party really care two hoots about the true left. They just care about the optics, and so anything that is anti-Trump, they're for it. It doesn't matter how trivial it is. It doesn't matter. It's just all superficial for the Democratic Party.
We're in a park. We're in a public park. So it's about our kids. I have a 3-year-old son. It's about him being scared. His mother.
Sir, I'm just here taking a video of you with your bat. You're here by the Columbus statue with the bat. That seems newsworthy to me. That's all. Any of you guys want to tell me why you're out here today?
None of your fucking business. What do you think? We're preserving culture. We're preserving heritage and history. This has nothing to do with racism, pal.
Does it have to do...
And probably about 60, 70 years ago, this guy might have been wearing a hood and a white outfit. That's the difference between today and 60 years ago. It's not so obvious now, and people pretend like they're not doing what they actually are doing. This guy is pretending like this is about culture, rather than he's really supporting and propping up white supremacist icons, white supremacist statues that represent power over everybody else that isn't in the dominant paradigm. And that's why it's so sad that he can't even be honest about this, but maybe he isn't even that aware, I don't know. But just watch the way there's just only a thin line between them actually full-on attacking this journalist and possibly really harming him. And I think the only reason they don't do it is because they know they would get in trouble at this point. But I do wonder, when Donald Trump gets into office and where the police are really on side with these white vigilantes, that things actually would go very differently if this was if this was next year and Donald Trump was in office. I think it might be a whole different outcome.
Has to do with history. There is no racism going on tonight. None. We love everybody. This is history. We're protecting history.
So, but can you understand?
Look at you shaking. Look at you shaking. You're fucking shaking. How scared are you?
Sir, please don't.
You're so scared.
And that guy is amazing. This is where bullies are cowards. Here he is with a baseball bat. His other friends have a baseball bat. They're all standing around him and looking antagonistic towards him. And like as if he would be, if he was in that journalist position, he'd probably be shaking and scared too. It's just, this is a typical bully that is really a coward.
Are you embarrassed? Are you embarrassed?
I can give you my business card, sir, if there's a problem.
Are you embarrassed? You're embarrassed. You're embarrassment. You're an embarrassment.
So what do you think about how Christopher Columbus cut off the hands of people who didn't bring him enough gold?
They were fucking savages back then. They all.
This guy just hit me in the head. Sir, can I have my bike back?
And did you hear what he said? He said, after he said, what do you think about cutting off the hands, Columbus cutting off the hands of people that didn't bring him enough gold? And he's shaking his head. See, I don't even think these people even know anything about Columbus. But he's just said, oh, they're savages back then. And that, could you get anything more racist than that? They were savages. Here is somebody, a white conqueror has come in and is destroying and killing the people who live here, who were here first. And these people they either don't know that or they don't care, because this is America and they are white supremacists and they feel like they're being replaced, the whole white replacement theory that this is going on, and they feel like it's a real battle between white people over people of color taking over. And breaking news to these people is that in, say, 20 or 30 years, they will be a complete minority, and they are probably afraid that those people of color and black people are going to treat them exactly the same way that they've been treating these people of color and immigrants and refugees. That's what they're afraid of. And the sad thing is they're projecting their own hate onto other people, onto these people of color. They expect that somebody is going to do to them what they've been doing to these people for hundreds and hundreds of years. And that's probably not the case. But they're afraid. They also truly believe that they are the superior race, and they're willing to shoot people and hit them with baseball bats to save their culture, what they consider their culture. White people. They could probably consider this to be racism against white people. And look at this guy taking his bicycle away. There is no law and order, not the law and order Donald Trump talks about, as I mentioned, which is, bashing leftists or whatever. There's no actual law and order here, where this would be seen as harassment, as assault. I mean, he's been hit in the head already.
Sir, let me have my bicycle. You want to talk shit? Get the fuck out of here.
No violence. Stop it. Please go.
What? Here's my group's card.
Thank you. Stop.
You guys want to tell me why you're out here?
We're out here. Yeah, I'll tell you.
You want to tell me why you're out here
You do
today?
not have permission to.
Does anyone want to tell me why you're out here today with bats and guns at the Christopher Columbus statue?
Because we are protecting this guy that we paid for. We're here.
Now look at the way the police are dressed at this gathering. I wonder if there had been black people here and leftists and anti-fascists here protesting, whether they'd be completely militarized. But look, they're not even, they're dressed down, and in many ways are quite comfortable with the people that are there. And I would imagine if this was reversed, they would have arrested those people if they were leftists, if they'd been doing the same thing to one of their white supremacist vigilante friends. These police would have arrested those people and probably have hauled them off to to jail. This is where it shows how the police are completely on side with these white supremacist vigilantes. And in fact, if they were in normal clothes, they'd probably be joining them. And this is where it's going to get ugly in the coming months. And if Donald Trump loses, it will get ugly. And if Donald Trump wins, it will get very ugly. And there probably won't be any police protecting people like this journalist who is trying to report on this. He's just standing there with a camera, and apparently that's verboten. And I don't know what took them so long to come to his assistance. I don't know where they were, but
Protesting and protecting our statue in peace.
It's our heritage.
Leave him alone.
No.
It's all right. It's all right. Put it away. You did the right thing. Don't worry.
Please, you guys.
I mean, look at this guy. This guy looks like ex-military. He's too cowardly to show his face. He's decked out there. I mean, how is this even legal? That this is acceptable? That I know he's probably got a permit to open carry, but how is it legal that he's able to be there? What is he going to do with that gun if somebody attacks that statue? Is he going to shoot them? I mean, why aren't the police saying, what are you going to do if somebody attempts to attack that statue? What are you going to do? You know, this is like they're basically taking the law into their own hands, and the police are letting them do so pretty much. Toxic masculinity on display here.
I'm not taking pictures of you. You're here for the same reason as
I'm not sure why they're clapping as the police are walking away. I don't know whether they're happy that they've gone or they're friends. Who knows? I'm not sure, but it must be really, really awful to be that angry. It must be really awful to be that angry and to hate your fellow citizens that much. I'm so glad that we don't really have this sort of hatred in Australia. It could get that way with the Murdoch press and our current government, which is an authoritarian wannabe government, the Scott Morrison government. But at this stage, we don't have this kind of hatred where you could kind of almost expect a civil war, because this is, you can sort of see this, the hatred that these people have for fellow citizens is palpable. And by the way, at the end of this, a week after, I think a few days after this, is they decided to take down that statue. So I'm sure that really pissed off these white supremacist vigilantes. And the police officer that came up to them, his name is Campione, who was basically telling the journalist he was inciting a riot by filming them, and that he gave him 3 chances to leave, and eventually the journalist left rather than get arrested. But that guy was given a desk job after this. So some good came out of this. But I mean, this sort of anger and hatred and the emboldening that Donald Trump has done to these people is palpable. And if this happens, if this same thing if this was next year, and if Donald Trump got in, this journalist might be laying bleeding on the ground at this point.
Hey, maybe pretend you don't know me. Just pretend you don't know me for a little bit.
He's pretty gutsy, this journalist, I have to say.
I said I don't want to fucking film it because I don't want to fucking film it. I don't want to fucking film it. I don't care. I don't fucking care about it either. Mike, I ain't fucking going nowhere. Mike, if they ain't got
Can you repeat that? I didn't catch that.
No, I'm giving you 3 warnings to disperse.
Okay.
So this guy, this is the one that ends up getting the desk job, because he's telling, it's amazing, he's warning this journalist that he's inciting some kind of a riot and that he has to leave. And here's these other people with baseball bats and open carrying weapons that are being very threatening. But this police officer, this is where you see whose side the police are on over and over again. It's on the side of white supremacist vigilantes. And if you took their police garb off and you had them in normal clothes, they'd probably be with them.
3 warnings. Right? Obviously, it's a volatile situation, and you're aggravating the situation.
I'm here as a journalist to document this situation.
Warnings,
So you're telling me that as a journalist...
Warning number 1, I'm asking you to leave.
Okay.
To quell the situation. Okay? That's your first warning. You want a time check?
I just... You understand that I'm telling you... I just want your confirmation. You understand I'm telling you...
8:48 p.m.
I'm here as a journalist.
8:48, and you're inciting a riot.
I'm here as a journalist. You're saying I'm inciting a riot as a journalist?
Yes, sir. 8:48 p.m.
So I can no longer fulfill my journalistic obligations to document this scene.
Time.
Okay, can you give me your name and badge number as
You
the
have
person
my
telling
name
me?
and badge number.
Can you say it for me out loud?
No, I can't. You can read it off my badge.
Okay.
135 is my badge number. All right?
All right.
Second warning. What time is it?
8:49.
8:49.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to comply with your order.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
God bless America. Land of the free, home of the brave.